Welcome to the Fit Dad Nation podcast, forging strong fathers and raising a stronger generation. It's time to get up or shut up with your host, Steve Roy.
Hey guys, this is Steve Roy, the host of the Fit Dad Nation podcast. Welcome to the show and thanks for listening. So before I introduce today's guest, I just want to take a quick moment to invite all you dads who are listening right now and who are ready to start taking action on reclaiming your health and fitness and becoming better fathers and better men to join our online community. And the best way to do that is to head over to Facebook and apply to our private group. It's called the Fit Dad Base Camp. That's facebook.com/groups/Fit Dad Base Camp. So today I am with Mark Bell, and Mark is someone who's very well known in the fitness industry, and his list of accomplishments is pretty extensive. So to name a few, he's a world and American record-holding professional powerlifter. He's an entrepreneur, a speaker. He's created something called the SlingShot, which is a supportive device designed to help people with their form with exercises like bench press, push-ups, and dips. He also owns the SuperTraining Gym in Sacramento. He runs a top 50 health podcast called Mark Bell's PowerCast, and he and his wife own and operate the internationally distributed Power magazine. So, I mean, he's really accomplished so much, not only in the fitness industry, but also in the business world. And I have a great deal of respect for him on both fronts. So, Mark, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Steve. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got. So before we jump into some of the things I want to talk about, maybe you could just share a little bit about your backstory and how you ended up where you're at now.
Whoa. Okay. I grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York, and there wasn't a lot to do there other than to lift weights and to be strong. And so for whatever reason, the environment of the time that I grew up and where I grew up, that's what people were obsessed with. They were just obsessed with getting stronger, or at least the people I was around. My oldest brother, Mike, Mad Dog Mike Bell, he was really into playing football. He was really into being stronger for football. And so he got into that at a young age and then pulled my brother Chris into it. And then Chris pulled me into it. And I've been addicted to the iron ever since. You know, I started lifting weights at about 12 years old. And when I started going into some of the local gyms, the philosophy there was, you know, we're going to work on getting big and strong. And that was what everybody was after. So it was kind of a steak and potatoes diet, which ironically I'm still on today. But that was kind of the mindset, was like, let's just figure out ways of getting big and strong. And that's what my mind had just gone to and has been obsessed with for many, many years, thinking of the mechanics of the lift, thinking of, you know, different supplements and different diets and different ways of getting stronger, different ways of getting, you know, psyched up or not psyched up for a lift, different training protocols, training at different times. I mean, you name it. You know, I've tried it, trying to go slow, trying to go fast, just implementing bands and chains and all different kinds of things. And that led me to, you know, stay interested in it for a long enough period of time to where it just, that spark became a roaring blaze and kind of turned into, you know, this passion, I guess you'd say. And I went to Columbus, Ohio, and learned under the tutelage of Louis Simmons, also learned from guys like Dave Tate, and I learned the Westside Barbell method. But on top of that, and probably more importantly than that, I just learned and rubbed elbows with some of the strongest people. And when I started to rub elbows with people like that, it got me of the mindset of, okay, like, this is cool, but this is just like one tiny element of life. You know, what if I was to scrape up against other people that were great in other things? And so then my mind started to kind of wander and think about some different things. I tried some professional wrestling for a while, wrestled for 5 years, and had a great time doing it. Wrestled all over the United States and wrestled in Japan. Some people may know me from wrestling for an organization called Ultimate Pro Wrestling. My brothers and I are responsible and got John Cena into pro wrestling some 20 years ago, maybe even more than that now. And, being able to rub elbows with people like John and being able to rub elbows with some WWE talent and kind of seeing, how professional and unprofessional some people could be, that was also a really great learning tool. Throwing myself in an environment where a lot of fear and anxiety is a huge part of the day because you go and cut a 1-minute promo talking about another wrestler in front of all the other wrestlers, and it better damn well be good. And you got to nail it right at 60 seconds. I mean, all these things were huge part of my life because I, before that time, was terrified to talk in front of people and to do those kinds of things. I'm not like the life of the party kind of person. I'm not an extrovert in that way. Still to this day, if I go to a party or I'm hanging out somewhere, you're not going to really see me like overly go out of my way to talk to people. And it's not because I don't want to. It's because I don't understand how to. And so I actually love communicating with people. I love meeting new people. But there's a side of me that's just like, I'll just, whatever I say is going to be stupid. So I just keep my mouth shut, basically. And I'm sure a lot of other people kind of feel that same way. But professional wrestling helped me get over that. The physicality of it was a huge part of it. Pushing your body to limits. I don't know if people understand the conditioning that you have to have for that. But the strength training and conditioning and all these different things and the pressure of that environment really built me. It really helped make me resilient. And there's more talks nowadays about people talking about psychology and prepping the mind for going above and beyond the day-to-day and prepping your mind for the most tragic things that you can experience in life, the biggest sadness you can, you yourself have been through divorce. Other people go through deaths and many different things. I went through the death of my oldest brother, Mike. And there's these things in life that happen that are really hard to cope with. They're really, really tough pills to swallow. However, it's my belief that you can train for any and everything. You can have situations in your life that happen that you can kind of compartmentalize and say, you know what, that's the byproduct of A, B, and C. And that is really, really unfortunate, but I'm not going to live my life thinking that I'm useless. And I'm not going to live my life thinking that whatever I do is just not worth anything because I'm so damn depressed and upset and pissed off and all these different feelings that we have that unfortunately they don't really produce any results towards being able to move forward. And so all these things that have happened or all these things that I've done and all these things that have happened to me have helped me create a mindset that has been stronger than it has been in the past. And that's all I'm ever trying to share with people. And sometimes I think people maybe it comes off the wrong way to people, and somebody might think that I'm bragging or that I'm, doing this or that. But really, all I'm doing is celebrating the fact that I'm improving, and I'm trying to share that experience with other people. If this dumb fat kid from Poughkeepsie can make it happen, then you can probably make it happen too.
Yeah, it's funny you just said that because when you first look at your stuff, you're like, who is this big meathead? And I started looking through some of your Instagram feeds and comments, and I just saw one that said, this page is too business oriented. You're so full of yourself, and you said, what I am, but it's because I'm taking care of myself first. And so when you really look at what you're doing, from what I've seen, I mean, you're a humble person. I mean, you may come across or you sound cocky or arrogant, but and from what I've learned about you, I mean, I don't get that at all.
Well, it's hard to say, I was talking to John Cena on the phone the other day without sounding like an asshole. We all have that friend who's always ready to kind of one-up you. I'm definitely not that guy. I'm definitely, if I'm in a family setting or in a friend setting, somebody here at work comes in and says, "Hey man, I got a new car." I'm not like, "Hey dude, so did I, and mine's better."
Right.
I'm definitely, or at least I try not to be that person. I personally actually make an effort to just listen to what somebody else is saying. And I've learned over the years, shit, man, why not just be happy for that person? Why not just be excited for that person? By me putting my energy positively into other people, it ends up just doing so much more for you than trying to be negative or really trying to worry about, hey man, is this guy gaining ground on me, or like what's going on over here? Is this guy catching up to me on the bench, or is this guy catching up to me with his finances? Or it's just easier just to put your hands together and just applaud them rather than it is to kind of shake your fist and be like, man, I'm falling behind.
Yeah, for sure, especially in this space, for sure. So I'm fascinated how you went from this giant, extremely powerful powerlifting guy that, you squatted 1080, you benched 854, I read, and then deadlifted 766, and took that and became kind of this entrepreneur, and you're dominating social media, and you've got these huge audiences and extremely engaged and loyal following, and you don't see that often. Someone that's excelled on one level, like in the fitness space and powerlifting space, and then turning it into a business, but an online business, and it reminds me of a conversation I had actually last week with Alan Thrall, who's kind of in the same space you are, and same situation where he's done really well on social media, and it's just fascinating. So, I'd love to hear about, how that happened. Like, how did you just end up turning this into hey, I'm going to start shooting YouTube videos. I'm going to start jumping on Instagram. I'm going to start producing a ton of content. And then you've got this multi-million-dollar online empire where you sell, all kinds of stuff. And so I want to hear that story a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it certainly didn't happen overnight. I kind of credit myself with being probably the only inventor that had to tear his pec multiple times to own, several United States patents, but that's ultimately what happened. Years ago, I injured myself lifting, and I came to the gym one day, and I was training really well. Everything was clicking. The squat was going really well. The deadlift was going really well. And I tweaked something in my pec, and it turned out, I tried to lift the next week, and it kind of got worse, and it was a torn pec, but it wasn't, it wasn't a complete tear off the bone type of deal. So I could still do stuff, but it hurt, and there was obviously a lot of potential for it to get worse. At that time, I was competing in powerlifting gear, and so I would wear a bench shirt, which is very, very supportive. It's very expensive. It's very tight, and it's just hard to get on. It's uncomfortable and all these different things. And so in my training for this competition, I was like, well, in the contest, I'm going to wear the bench shirt anyway. So I wonder, it's a few weeks out from the contest. I wonder if I just wore a loose bench shirt, a bigger one that's a little easier to get on. I wonder if I could just do all my training in that, just not even touch a regular weight at all, and just kind of see what it does. To give the fans out there of your show an idea of what a bench shirt does, a bench shirt gives you so much support that it doesn't allow you to bring the weight all the way down to your chest. It makes it very difficult to bring the weight down. So you need more weight than you can handle to do a full range of motion. And oftentimes, once you get the skill of it down, you could start to bench press 50 more pounds, 100 more pounds, and so on. And so I ended up becoming really well versed in how to utilize this equipment. And that's how I was able to kind of get ahead of the pack years ago, and ended up ultimately benching at 854 pounds. So I'm preparing for this meet. I wore this big bench shirt in the gym, and actually there's a training session that we filmed back in the day. It was just we would just film the actual sets. We wouldn't really film a lot of in-between stuff, which now we do. We try to film, people laughing and people joking around, and people or people getting intense before the lift and stuff. We try to show a lot of the setup and things like that. But back then, we just filmed the actual set. But you can actually see me doing a lift with this bench shirt on, and I rack the weight, and you can kind of just see the gears ticking in my head, and then it cuts, and then it just goes to the next lift or next lifter. But at that moment, I had this concept and idea of, hey, if I can put this thing on, and I can lift, and I can still press these weights, because I had 400 pounds on there. Which at the time was not a huge amount of weight for me, but shit, that's a lot of weight, especially for somebody with a pec tear. So I I lifted this weight and I had virtually no pain. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is incredible. Then it just clicked with me. At that point, I was probably about 30 years old or somewhere in that neighborhood. And I got thinking to myself, man, all these guys have come up to me in all these different gyms that I've been in all these years, over these years, have said, oh man, I remember when I used to bench 3 plates. I remember when I used to bench 4 plates. I remember when I used to do this or used to do that, but I tore my rotator cuff or I tore my pec or I tore this or tore that. I'm like, oh my God, I could produce a product that could help those people no longer have to say that. They could still do the lift because they'll no longer be in pain. And so that's kind of where the gears started to turn on this kind of evolution of the product that I created that changed my life forever, which is called the SlingShot, which is a supportive upper body device for bench press, push-ups, dips, slides up over your arms, and gives you about a 10% advantage on the weight that you're lifting. So if you bench press, 200 pounds, it's going to give you an extra 20 pounds of strength or so. You might be able to bench 220 or 225, somewhere in that neighborhood. And it also takes a lot of pressure off your shoulder, off your pecs, off your elbows. A really quick comparison for somebody would be, think about if you were to, I remember in school we did these fire drills or these like kind of accident drills if something happened on a bus and you have to jump out of the back of the bus. And I was a bigger kid, so I remember like it would hurt like hell jumping out of the back of the bus and landing on the blacktop. So if you can kind of picture that same scenario where you're jumping out of something that's 5 feet off the ground, 6 feet off the ground, and instead of landing on blacktop, you're landing in sand. So that's kind of what the SlingShot does. The SlingShot really helps dissipate the eccentric loading, the lowering portion of a bench press. The way I refer to it as it ends up acting as double muscle. As your muscles lengthen when you're bringing the weight down in the bench press, so does the SlingShot. As your muscles contract and come together, so does the SlingShot. So it gives you a nice advantage where you're at a disadvantage. The least advantageous position of a bench press is when both your elbows are back behind your body, which is in the bottom of the lift. And this provides some kind of gentle guidance out of the bottom of the lift and gives you the support that you need. And on top of that, and this is not something I did by design, but it just happened to be that it helps you with your form tremendously because it helps keep your elbows in closer to your body, which is another thing that's going to help protect your shoulders and your pecs. So, how did this stuff build up and how did it turn into, a multi-million-dollar like empire? It all just started with a good idea and a good product. We made a good product and I knew that it had to be quality. And I knew that we had to, once we created the SlingShot, from that time on, I knew that we needed to create products that were similar, that took away a lot of the pain. All of our products are devoted towards making fitness easier. Let's face it, getting in the gym, just getting to the gym is hard. And then I don't want to have bad reinforcement about how awful it is to even get to the gym by going to do a lift and being like, holy shit, man, my knee really hurts. So we create knee sleeves that prevent that. We create compression cuffs that prevent that. We create wrist wraps that prevent your wrist from feeling like it's going to fall off. We start to make all kinds of different products so that you can still train intensely, but not have to deal with all the pain and not have to deal with, and even putting on a pair of knee sleeves that are loose and not super supportive, just going to provide you with a little bit more warmth. And it's going to just make you at least think that you feel better, even if it's not helping you lift an extra 50 pounds like the SlingShot might do. It's still supportive in some way. And your body, like if you put on a lifting belt, you just kind of feel better. Obviously, the lifting belt is giving you enough support to where you can lift more as well. But man, what a great thing that is. It's almost like a mood enhancer. If you go to lift and the first thing that you get out of doing a deadlift is like, holy shit, man, my back is not feeling it today. And man, I'm just not moving well today. I don't know what's going on. I don't feel good. But if I put you in a lifting belt right away, your confidence goes up and you start to feel a little bit better, and you're like, oh man, that weight that normally feels kind of heavy, that actually felt pretty good. Let me try it again. And it gives you confidence, and it makes you want to continue to do these lifts.
Yeah, and so people that are listening, you may think, oh, this is just for, muscle heads or power lifters. It's not, though. I mean, you have a line of products that cater to anybody, and movements like a basic push-up. I mean, I've been in the fitness game. I've been a trainer and coach for 21 years off and on, but it's been part of my life for a long time. And people butcher these movements, a simple bench press, a simple push-up. I mean, how often do you see it? So anything that will help, I mean, if that helps with that, clean it up, absolutely.
And, to elaborate a little bit more, how did I go from, squatting 1,080 to being like a business professional? Nothing really changed, really. I think a huge advantage for me was the fact that, and I'm well aware of this, and I was kind of aware of this when I was powerlifting, but not fully. I wish I was a little bit more aware of it. I could have advanced even further. Whatever you're currently doing will only get you so far. Like whatever your current concentration is on, it might be too much to get to widen and expand your mind to get you to the right place. So, for example, I think powerlifters powerlift too much. Powerlifters lift too heavy too often. I think CrossFitters CrossFit too much. Bodybuilders bodybuild too much. Scientists science too much. English majors English too much. You know what I mean? So, like, you have to kind of figure out, how do I get outside E equals MC squared and things like that. These great things that have these great philosophies, or even laws, if you want to call them that, have been developed by doing other shit. I believe Albert Einstein was like on a train when he saw light, and just, I don't even remember the entire length of the story, but the point is that you're not going to be able to get to where you really truly want to go unless you're willing to try and do things that are a little bit different, that are maybe a little bit outside the box. I go to a coffee shop almost every morning or several times a week, and I just try to like almost just blank out, and I listen to different stuff on YouTube, or I'll listen to music. I kind of have these different like settings that I'll kind of get into. And I just scribble down some notes. I'll doodle. I'll draw a bunch of different stuff, and it has led me to be able to be creative and innovative. And look at Steve Jobs. Like I don't think Steve Jobs is necessarily. I mean, now he's looked at as like a business guy, right? But really, he wasn't. Like, he was just obsessed with technology. He's obsessed with computers and obsessed with how do I make this product awesome? The point where it's undeniable. It's very clear that this is the best damn thing that you're going to use. And there's been other guys that are the same way, and they end up, becoming some of the most successful people this world's ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that I like about your story is, you're not this in your face, look at my product, buy my stuff type of guy. You're just putting out good content. Like you said, you do behind the scenes, the stuff that's interesting to people. People hate being sold to, and that's what most people try to do, is sell their products, create ads. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves in this industry. I hate it so much, because you go on Instagram, right? Every coach, we'll call them coaches, has something to sell you. They all are regurgitating the same bullshit. And it's so frustrating to me, because I just refuse to play that game. And so when I see your content, you're just being real. I mean, I guess you'll call it your sales video for your SlingShot on YouTube. You're not even pitching. I mean, you're literally just talking. It sounds like off the cuff about how this is going to help people, and how, you ended up developing it, and it's real. And I think that's the difference. And there's not enough of that in this business. I mean, there's so many people that are making money off of the ignorant, selling some piece of shit, and people are buying it. And one of my biggest frustrations, like, let's look at the Simply Fit board, or some gadget, right, that has very little use, but you throw someone's celebrity name on there, you put a bunch of money into advertising, and it sells millions.
Yeah, the things that are advertised. Yeah, the things that are advertised to you the most are usually the worst things for you. McDonald's and all the different stuff you see advertised on television. A lot of times those things are not they're not great for you. But what I try to do is I just try to provide information. We actually have meetings here, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about like, oh shit, yeah, we got to talk about the products. That's always kind of like the last thing. We've been in business for about 8 years now, and just now we're starting to actually make commercials, because the reason why we're making commercials now is we're like, man, we have a whole new audience of people, and people are clicking on these different things. They'll say, what are those knee sleeves? Hey, wait, what do those do? Hey, what's that product do? What's that for? And so now we're like, okay, well, we better start to create some dialogue around this, because people are really confused. When I had a smaller pool of people, it was a little easier because everybody was kind of following everything that I did. Now it's hard to follow everything that I do, because we put out about 4 or 5 videos every week on my YouTube channel. We put about we do about 3 to 4 podcasts every week, and so there's just a tremendous amount of content flying your way. So it's really hard to try to follow everything. And so now we actually will sit down and have a meeting and say, hey, look, this would be the easiest way to kind of get more attention, would be to simply explain what some of these things do. We always try to have fun. If we're going to do a regular ad, it's really rare that it's just an ad. It's either informative or funny. We did one recently with our hip circle product, and it was informative. We said, here's a workout that you can do, and not every piece of the workout even included the hip circle, which I think people appreciate. And also too, like, what's wrong with saying, hey, you know what, you could do this workout without the product, or here's something you can do instead of using the product. I don't think that leads to less sales. I think it's transparent, it's easy for people to digest, and I want to see people do better. People are sick, people are fat, people are out of shape, people are depressed, people have anxiety, and I would really love to see people be more mentally strong and physically fit, rather than just trying to sell people the product all the time.
Mm-hmm. It actually brings to mind a conversation I had recently with he was a really successful life coach, and he does these mastermind groups that are really successful. And he said someone contacted him recently and said, hey, I want to join your mastermind, but I'm only joining it so I can learn exactly what you do and then copy it. And he said, absolutely. He said, I will teach you exactly what I know. There's enough to go around. And I love that. So when you said that, it kind of reminded me of that. You're just out there to help people. You're not trying to fight the masses and nickel and dime and your way to the top like so many people are doing.
There's not a limit on how much success is out there. And we're seeing that. I mean, you look at social media. I mean, this guy's got 500,000 followers. This guy's got 1 million. This girl's got 1 million. I mean, there's a lot of voices out there, and sometimes it's not always all positive. Sometimes some of that can be a negative, but a lot of it's very, very positive. People that otherwise maybe couldn't have figured out how to, as I call it, put points up on the scoreboard, are now able to figure it out a little bit easier, because social media, there's less degrees of separation. There's less just like red tape in terms of trying to figure out how to sell something. If I was selling a SlingShot 20 years ago, I mean, would I have like a purchase order, or somebody like mail me a check or something? Like, I'd have an ad in a magazine or something. I'm not even sure, how all that would work. So I think we're at a really, as I pointed out, definitely there's some negatives. I think too many of us are on social media too much. I think we shouldn't allow social media to use us. We should utilize it as it's a really wonderful tool. What a great way to communicate with each other. I'm sure that you and I got in contact through some form of social media. I'm sure you contacted someone on my team, and then here we go. Those kinds of things have happened for me with guys like Tim Ferriss and being on Joe Rogan's show and some different things like that. So I think that social media in a lot of ways is a huge blessing. But then, with anything that's great, like ice cream is great, right? But it can also be very damaging. So we have to I really like recently the iOS kind of has a screen time, that you can kind of cap on it. And I think I think that people do need some governing. They need someone kind of watching over them and saying, "Hey, you know what? Like, let's talk about a reasonable amount of time to associate with social media, rather than you just haphazardly checking in and being on there for an hour 7 times a day."
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, easy trap. I mean, especially when you work online, like you or me. Yeah, such an easy trap. So yeah, I'm curious to hear about this. And this is just shifting gears a little bit, but so your brother Mike, who was a professional wrestler in the WWF, he died at age 37 back in 2008. And so I'm curious to know if that, because just a few years later you started, your business with the SlingShot. Did his death, did you start to approach your own life and look at your mortality and started really pursuing your dreams and passions because of that? Did that kind of speed things along?
Yeah, my brother's death was a huge part of starting the SlingShot. I had the idea of the SlingShot probably in like 2007 or so. Around 2007 sounds about right. And so I had the idea for a little while. I kicked it around to a couple people, and those people and those companies thought it was a shitty idea, and so therefore they planted the seed in my head that, yeah, maybe it is a shitty idea. And so I kind of just came to accept that for a little bit. And when my brother passed away, my brother, he was bipolar. He loved alcohol and drugs and different things too. So, it was how do you kind of say, like, put it into words? It was almost his destiny was like predetermined. You could see the writing on the wall. Like, you knew something bad was going to happen with him. He's either going to end up dead or in jail. And he ended up in jail many times, and eventually ended up dead. And when he passed, definitely made me kind of question like what I was doing. He and I were very close. Me and my brother Chris and Mike, we were all very close growing up. We have a just close family in general. I'm very close with my mom and my dad. I was very close to my grandparents. We're all connected very strongly, and very connected to my cousins and stuff like that as well. And when he passed, it was like, just dropped a giant bomb on our family, and it was really, really difficult to deal with. But kind of as I mentioned earlier, when you train and if you can kind of think about your training in the gym and start to think about, okay, I'm training my muscles, but you're really not just training your muscles, you're training your mind. Even very thought of exercise doesn't start in your muscles. It never starts in your muscles. It starts in your mind. It starts with a conscious decision to say, you know what, I'm tired of being weak, or I'm tired of being fat. I'm tired of not being flexible, or whatever the case is for you. I'm tired of not being fit, tired of not being able to breathe well when I walk up a flight of stairs. And it causes you to get your butt to the gym, and then it causes you to train yourself. And then over a period of time, you have to work harder and harder and harder, and you want to work harder and harder. And so it's a push against, it's not just the resistance that you're facing. You're pushing your brain to a limit. You get to these limits and you're like, holy shit, that hurts. My legs are really, full of blood. I can't do another rep. And what do? You turn around and do 2 or 3 more reps because that's what you need. That's good for you. And so when you start to face adversity in life, I've learned to just really kind of push back into it. Just take it as the resistance in the gym. In the gym, you're preparing yourself for more resistance than you normally handle. So if you're going to do a set of 10, obviously you could handle more weight because you did it 10 times, right? And so that's the way I look at my life. I want to be able to handle 10 times the amount of pressure that will ever come my way. And so if somebody dies, and if something really tragic happens, it's not like I'm going to shrug it off and I'm going to be emotionless by any means. I'm going to cry my heart out like I did when my brother passed. And there's going to be a lot of trauma, but it's going to be easier for me to handle because I'm going to be stronger, because I kind of prep myself for these situations. And I always knew, anybody that deals with addiction should understand, look, there's the possibility, right? It's always a good idea to examine the possibility of all things that are bad that can happen. the same time, you don't want to walk around with your head down all day thinking, oh man, I could go to the gym today and I can bust my ankle. But at the same time, because you do bust your ankle downhill skiing, you shouldn't drown your sorrows in ice cream every night for the next 6 months and gain 50 pounds. So you should really try to prep yourself for these things. So when my brother passed, it did hit me hard, and it made me kind of really think about hey, like life's short, let's start moving. And I had a dream actually. And in this dream, it's really strange, but it felt like he was there. It felt like he was with me in this dream, or it felt like he was with me in the room, which was really bizarre. I was dreaming. It was where he was in it. And I just got this kind of whisper in my ear that said, think. And then I woke up and I was just like scared and I was crying and I didn't know what the hell was going on. And I had chills and I was just like, I have no explanation of any of that. I don't even know if I believe or not believe in ghosts or any of that kind of stuff. I've never had any experience that was ever similar to anything like that before. And I don't really understand what that was, but it was kind of from that day on, I was like, yeah, you know what? You dumbass, you do need to think. You do need to pay attention more. And I just kind of started to think, and I started to take action on some of the thoughts that I had. And one of the main things that I had in my brain was the SlingShot. And I was like, I need to figure this out. My brother, if you watched the movie Bigger, Stronger, Faster, he says, I have something inside me that I want to share with the whole world. And I don't, but I don't know what it is. And I feel like my brother and I, Chris, I feel like it's our responsibility to have that message carry on. I do think he had a lot of valuable things inside. I do think that he wanted to share himself and he wanted to empower people. And I feel like that's what me and my brother are here to do now. And we always talk about making the world a better place to live. That's what my company is dedicated to. My brother and I are working on a documentary, a nutrition documentary, and that's what that documentary is made to do too. Is we want to make things better for people. We want to make things easier for people. We want to make things less complicated for people. And the creation of the SlingShot was kind of my first stab at that.
Wow. Yeah. So when you just said make things easier, reminds me of the quote you said before we started recording, saying, just be better than you were yesterday, which is something that I teach my community is, keep it simple, one step at a time. Don't worry about next year, next month, worry about right now, and simplicity is key. Make it easy, make it simple. And, I think it's so easy to get overcomplicated in this space. And there's obviously way more information that we can ever consume in this space. Every expert has their own method and everyone's trying to sell you something. So a lot of people don't even know what to do. So they end up doing nothing.
Yeah. If you're left to your own devices and, let's say that you run into a 45-year-old dad at a coffee shop. He says, hey man, I love your podcast, but I'm having a hard time, getting motivated and having a tough time figuring out, just kind of like where to start. And if you say, oh, that's good, man, I'm glad you listened to the podcast, appreciate it, and you rattle off 97 things that he could do. Well, he's not going to do anything, right? He's going to be like, he's going to have analysis paralysis kind of things and be like, I'm not sure. He said I should go like work out. And then he gave me a list of things to do for my upper body. And then he said to do legs. And then he said, he said to do yoga and he said to do all these things. And the guy's going to be kind of confused. Or even if he just said, hey, you know what, pick one thing and try it out and see if it fits your needs. Like the guy's probably not going to do that either. And so if you just said, hey, you know what, let's start with what do you like to do or what did you used to like to do? And they could say, oh, yeah, as a kid, I used to ride my bike all the time. Okay, do you still have a bike? They might say no. Say, okay, well, do you have access to a stationary bike? They might say, yep, I got one at my, in my apartment complex or whatever. Hey, you know what? That would be a fantastic start. And if you hate being inside and don't like the way that feels, maybe just go for a walk. And, try to start doing some 10-minute walks. Like try to do one see if you can string together a couple days in a row where you do a 10-minute walk, and you can even challenge them. Say, I bet you're not tough enough to do it for a whole month where you do one 10-minute walk every day. Well, now you just gave the guy a goal, you gave the guy a time frame, you gave the guy something very specific to do, and the guy's going to be like, or girl, they're going to be like, 10-minute walk, that's chump change. I can handle that. Who can't do a 10-minute walk? All you need to do is chuck on a pair of shoes and go outside. It's pretty damn easy. It does get cold or hot or whatever, but that's not too hard to bear, especially for only 10 minutes. So yeah, make it easy. And then you'll feel great about it too. I just this morning just shot over a checklist to Andrew, who you spoke to earlier, my podcast engineer, and said, hey man, like, let's make sure you're doing these things every day. Are you, and we just, we follow different diets at different times, but let's get in are you getting in 4 meals every day? Are you walking twice every day? Just go down the checklist. And, as you grow stronger and as you do more, you can handle more. I always say do more, be more. The more that you can do, the more you can handle. But in the beginning, have a very small checklist of things to do. And maybe they're like things that you have to do rather than things that you want to do. Because things that you have to do, those things are just going to get done. Like you have to go to the grocery store because you have to get stuff for your 2-year-old kid or whatever, right? Like you just know, like that's going to happen. You're going to do that. Whether you're tired or not, you're going to do that. But why not have that on your checklist? Because you get to check it off. You get to stick up a point on the scoreboard. It's kind of a cheat, It's not big time points, but it's a point, and it counts, and it matters, and that you had to do it, and that you accomplished it. You're like, boom, done. Haircut, bam, nailed it. Shower, boom, done. These are all things that you have to do every day, or that you should be doing every day, right? And so as you start to get into this a little deeper, and as you start to climb into this a little bit more, you start to recognize what a weak piece of shit you really are. And I mean that for everybody, including myself. I'm targeting specifically myself. You realize, man, I'm a piece of crap, because there's things that you could be doing and that you should be doing and that are for the betterment of your overall well-being and the overall betterment of your placing in this world and your I guess you're just like your power, your how substantial you are. I mean, everybody wants to be significant, right? And so going for a walk, or just in let's just say embarking on some fitness, try to figure out your health through some nutrition and through some exercise, is a way that you can become more significant. But it's hard to understand that when you're like, oh man, I'm just like, I'll never be like that guy. Like that guy's in shape, and like I'm fat, and I'm not a workout guy. Like that guy's that way, and he probably has always been skinny, or that girl's, she's probably always been that way, and I'm never going to be. Well, of course, with that attitude, it's going to be very hard to climb that mountain. But start to kind of interview yourself. Start to ask yourself some questions. Why are there things that I could be doing and I should be doing, but I'm not doing them? What's the disconnect? Are they too hard? If they're too hard and you can't do them, then those are things that you currently can't do. Don't ever say that you can't do them or that you'll never do them. Just for that moment, you're having a hard time doing it at that moment because you're not trained up enough for it yet. Just like I'm not trained up enough to go do a marathon. But could I do a marathon? Sure. It'd suck. But give me a little bit of time and I can figure out how to do a marathon. You can do most things. There's some people who kind of promote that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. There's certain limitations. I can't go and play for the Los Angeles Lakers. It's just at this point, that ship has sailed. That ain't going to happen. And maybe I never had the skill set because there's just a certain requirement of doing that's necessary. That for whatever reason, different people are born with and different people are born without. But start to kind of question, what are these things that I should be doing that I could be doing? Could I have one serving of fruit every day? Could I have one serving of vegetables every day? Could I have one serving of protein every day? I mean, there's all these things. Yeah, you could, right? Why aren't you? I always like to have addition by subtraction. Keep adding to your life rather than subtracting. Rather than me saying, hey, you know what? You can't go to McDonald's. I'm going to say, hey, you know what you need? I need you to do? I need you to have, if you're going to have 3 meals in a day, I need you to have 3 quality protein sources for the day. I need you to eat some vegetables. I need you to eat some fruit. How about something like yogurt? Do you like yogurt? Let's have yogurt at night, 2 hours before you go to bed or something as a snack. So by implementing all these things, it's like, oh shit, well, he gave me a bunch of crap to do. I don't have time to go to McDonald's. I don't have the space in my stomach for McDonald's when he told me to eat 6 ounces of steak and 6 ounces of salmon and 3 eggs throughout the day. Along with some potatoes. I don't have time. I'm going to give a plug to my boy, Stan the Rhino Efferding, for people that are listening to this podcast. Stan Efferding has developed, and he would be a great dad for you to talk to. Stan Efferding has developed a diet called the vertical diet, which I feel is simple. It's not a no carb diet. It's not a high carb diet. It's not a high fat diet. It's a diet that is nutritionally charged, and it's based on a lot of science that he's investigated over the years. And he didn't come up with a lot of these concepts. He just absorbed them over the years. And so anybody that's just really confused on like where the hell to go, like I don't even know where to start with a diet, Stan has great information that is 100% reasonable to follow.
Okay, I've actually definitely heard of that. And familiar with him to some extent as well. So I'm curious. You're obviously a super busy guy, right? You've got business and podcasts and video content, and you got a million moving pieces. So I'm curious how you spend your day and kind of how you balance it all out so you don't, go off the deep end one way or the other.
I'm a pretty simple person. The first half of my day is devoted towards work. And work for me includes lifting. So that's kind of, that's a little bit like a personal time as well. I don't mix actual work with lifting. Like we're not, occasionally we might talk about an idea or concept, but we don't get too heavy into actual work during lifting. The gym and everything is all under one roof here in West Sacramento. And, we try to separate those things out a little bit, but basically, I wake up around 4:30, get myself together around 5 o'clock, and I cook breakfast for my kids every day. I spend a little bit of time with them in the morning before they go to school. I have a 14-year-old son named Jake, an 11-year-old daughter named Quinn. And, I just try to show them some love and some care by simply just spending time with them. I keep that very simple as well. We don't always have to do something spectacular. Just the fact that we're together hanging out. I may ask them to put away their phone. They may ask me to put away my phone. We try to interact and kind of hang out, and we go to movies and dinners and different things like that too. But yeah, basically I keep it really simple. The front half of my day is loaded up with lifting and work stuff. The second half of my day is loaded up with family stuff. So usually, like if I planned my day, which I'm getting better at as I'm getting older, but I kind of have a philosophy of try not to start your day until it's finished, try not to start your day until it's planned. Plan it out the day before, and the day's already on lockdown. If you're having a really hard time going back to a diet again, start to schedule when you eat. Schedule 3 or 4 meals and say, okay, I'm going to eat at 8 a.m., I'm going to eat at 12, I'm going to eat at 4, and I'm going to eat at 7:30 or whatever it is, right? And then it's just there. And when you can even set your alarm to it. You can even set your alarm on your phone to it and say, I'm going to eat around these times. It doesn't have to be exactly that time. But what does that do? That puts you on a schedule. Like that's when you're eating. And then everything else kind of falls into place in between those times. Why is it important for you to eat at those times? Because you care about your health. Why is it important for you to care about your health? Because you care about your longevity. Why is it important for you to care about your longevity? Because if you're not around for a long time, you can't learn enough shit to acquire anything. And you can't learn enough stuff to be strong enough to be as valuable as you can be. And you want to be as valuable as you can be to as many people as possible for as long as you possibly can. So it's a lot of this stuff is a recipe. It's a foundation for you being able to stick with what you're doing. How do you balance out your life between trying to be wealthy and trying to be and trying to be a family man at the same time? Well, you have to kind of determine what some of these things mean to you, and you have to start to really think and visualize. And that's why I spend so much time on personal development, where I'll sit down and I'll sit there and I'll think. I think about myself a lot, of course, because I want to take care of myself so I can take care of other people as well. So I might like write down a new diet, or I might write out a new workout program, but I'm not just sitting around doing that all day. I'm not that self-centered, at least not yet anyway. I sit there and I actually think about people specifically. So if I'm thinking about something work related and I'm like, oh man, I need to get this information over to this person because I want to make sure that this happens, by late November or December or whatever it is, I might actually think about, oh shit, okay, December, okay, Christmas is coming up. What is something I can do for that person for Christmas that's special to that person? What is something I can provide for them? So as I'm kind of going through this checklist of stuff, I start to think about, how can I add value to that person? How can I, or even sometimes I just might think of somebody when I go home and I just text them. It's somebody I work with and just say, hey, you did a great job today. Thank you. Like, that's not hard. That doesn't really consume any time. And so the balance is to be kind of on call 24/7, where you just try not to let anything slide or anything go. You're not negotiating, and you're not allowing anything to fall. You're not allowing any of these. You got all these plates spinning. You're spinning all of them because over a long period of time, you have taught yourself how to be able to handle more. Remember, I talked about that mindset in the gym. This weekend, I did a set of 46 reps on a squat because it's my brother's 46th birthday. And I got to the 15th rep and I thought I was going to die. Well, you teach yourself, you train yourself to be able to handle more. Somebody might look at that and think, man, this guy's a madman. What's he doing? But it's preparation for other things. It's preparation for making sure that I make somebody feel good for the day. Make sure that I don't neglect. Once you start to neglect things, that's when shit starts to really fall apart. Making sure I'm not neglecting my wife. Making sure I'm not neglecting my children. Making sure I'm not neglecting my job. Here at SlingShot, my sister-in-law actually just started working for us. We were texting back and forth today, and she said, it's crazy to think, fast forward, 20 years from when we first met, that you're now my boss. And I said, I'm not your boss. I said, we work together, and we don't work we don't work for SlingShot. SlingShot works for us. Let's squeeze as much money out of SlingShot as we possibly can, and let's all utilize it to the best of our ability. We're in there working together. I'm not always the first person to show up here every day, and I'm not always the last person to leave, but I work a lot. I'm here a lot. So these guys and girls that work for me, they are putting their asses on the line every day, working as hard as they can. And when they leave, their job doesn't stop either. Like if I'm texting them, I might text Andrew and say, hey man, I was wondering about, Andrew does photography for us as well. He's a jack of all trades. I'll text him and say, hey man, what about those photos from the other day? He goes, oh man, I'm actually working on them right now. Or I'll shoot them right over to me right then. So like he's literally, I know he's somewhere at a computer, working his face off too. And that's because they see what I'm doing. But it's not only what I'm doing, it's what the guy next to him's doing, and what the girl next to him's doing. They see, it's this environment that has been created by some of these things that I'm listing out right now, and some of the things I'm sharing with you guys on this podcast. And so when it comes to balance, and it comes to trying to figure out how to be successful and all these things, I'll say this. Have felt successful my entire life before I ever even achieved anything. Maybe it's because I'm not smart enough to understand what success truly is. But I've always felt wealthy. I felt wealthy before I was ever rich. I always had enough love and I've had an abundance of wonderful things in my life that make me feel good. I also think that that's partly due to the way I was raised. That's partly due to maybe the fact that I choose to look at the things that are good. If I wake up and I wake up late and I go to make a protein shake instead of cooking breakfast, and I go to make a shake and it spills all over my shirt that I just changed into, yeah, of course I'm going to drop some F-bombs and I'm going to be super frustrated. But I'm not going to let that sidetrack my whole day. I have done that before. I've lived that life before, where you're pissed off and you let it take over your day, and then you lose that day by being frustrated. But what I've learned is the way to make sure that you consistently and constantly lose is to simply just be unprepared for what's about to happen every single day. So I try to prepare my meals. I try to get out in front of my day. I try to lay out my clothes before. I suck at a lot of these things. I'm not even that good at it, but I'm good enough at it to stay enough ahead to where I'm a little bit ahead each day. Think about if you're just 4 minutes ahead every day, like what does that start to really add up to be over a long period of time? What's that look like at the end of the week? What's that look like at the end of the month? What's that look like at the end of the year? What if you just did the shit that you're always talking about doing? What if you just did 50% of that? and what if you looked at 5 years down the road? All these dreams and hopes that you have before you go to bed, and then you wake up the next day and that whatever that thing was that was in your head is whoosh, out the window. What if you wrote that thing down, and what if you actually acted upon it? What if you actually chased it down? That's the victory. That's success. Even the attempt, because we know even the very attempt to go do something turns into something better. How many times have we heard somebody say, "Oh yeah, I tried college for a year, and I went to University of Georgia, and I hated Georgia, and so I moved from there, and I moved back in with my parents, but then it doesn't really matter that there was a failed attempt to go to school. The success story of that whole thing is just that you even tried." So there's so much to learn from just that. The education. The education might not come from the school. The education comes from the process of the different things that happen. I look at Bill Gates. Bill Gates tried to go to school, and he didn't like it. He dropped out. He was weird because he would still go to classes and stuff. But and he later went back and got his degree and everything like that. But he's a college dropout. A lot of these people that we put up on this pedestal that kick a lot of ass, they do things unconventionally, but they probably really more so than anything else, just have a great perspective on things. And so that's what I try to preach, and that's what I try to share with people.
Yeah, I love your passion for improving yourself on a personal level. It's not, we haven't really even spoken at all about the physical side of what you do. We've been, more talking about the mental and emotional side of it. But I just want to shift gears real quick because I want to be respectful of your time. We've been on the call for a little while. So I wanted to ask you about, so you've spent your whole life just beating the shit out of your body with weights. And so I'm curious to know, what you do these days as far as recovery and movement, mobility, all that stuff. How important is that in your life right now?
Yeah, I still kick the shit out of myself a lot. We still train really hard. I get into some different training modalities where I'll mix things up a little bit. I'll do more. Nowadays, I do a little bit more bodybuilding stuff, which is a little bit better on the tendons, ligaments, joints than powerlifting. It's not as abusive, but recovery wise, I spend a lot of time in my hot tub. I'm in there once or twice a day, and I do a lot of active recovery stuff where I'll like for today, I'm pretty sore from the squats and stuff we did this weekend. I'll probably do some interval training on a bike. Not crazy. I do some sprints, but they're not they're not all out, so I'll do like maybe 10 sprints or 8 sprints, and they'll be at like about 70%, 60%, somewhere in there. And I'll go for 15 seconds and then rest 30 seconds, stuff like that. I basically just try to keep moving. I do a lot of walking. I never stretch. I should definitely stretch. I always have these, and that's one of those things. That's something I could be doing. That's something I told you earlier. I suck at some of these things. That's something I could be doing. That's something I should be doing. That's something I know would be great for me to do. I just don't do it that often. So I got my own work cut out for me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else recovery wise that I do. That's pretty much it. Well, I really value sleep a lot. Sleep is really, really crucial. If you're someone that can afford to get in any naps at all, that can really help. If you're somebody obsessed with fitness and strength, getting in some naps can be immensely powerful. Most people don't have time for it. It's always been a tough thing for me to make time for. But if I have the opportunity, if I have 60 minutes, 90 minutes, I will opt and try to take that snooze if I can do it. But it's pretty rare. But I really do value sleep, and so I did mention waking up early. I don't have an alarm clock. I don't wake up with my alarm clock, but I use the alarm on my phone to signal me to go to bed. So that actually goes off around 7. Some days I'll set it to like 7:30. Somebody's like, "Holy shit, that's early." Well, I'm not actually in bed at 7 o'clock. It's just a signal to me, like, okay, day's over. Like, start prepping for that. And so I might make sure my children are prepared to go to bed, make sure they shower or whatever they need to do. Lock up the house and just kind of take care of all the normal things. There's a kind of a ritual before you go to bed. And, by the time I actually lay down for bed, it's like, a lot of times it's 9 o'clock, and so, but I really do value sleep, and sleep is hugely important to your recovery. And then obviously the nutrition and staying on top of it. You cannot recover from your workouts if you're not feeding yourself. So anybody that's listening that wants a better body, you have to feed yourself. Even if you're trying to like diet, even if you're trying to be leaner, the diet that gets you leaner and the diet gets you bigger they're very similar. It's just kind of the amount of food that you consume, but if you're trying to really push your workouts and working out hard, you need a good amount of food. You need a lot of nutrition. I'm big on steak and potatoes, salmon. Rice can be a good addition if you're someone that really has a hard time gaining weight. But rice is mainly just a carbohydrate. It doesn't have much vitamins or minerals or anything like that. When you get a potato, at least you're getting a potassium, and there's some vitamins in there as well. And I eat some like spinach and some different things like that. But you really have to kind of pay attention to your nutrition and to your sleep if you want to recover from the things that you're doing. Lastly, I'll touch upon this. Recovery is a really interesting word. So last night as I was winding the day down, I start out every day with a 10-minute walk, and I end every day with a 10-minute walk. So last night I get back from my 10-minute walk, and I was like, you know what? I feel awesome. I'm going to kick the shit out of tomorrow. I'm super pumped. And that to me tells me I'm recovered. Now, there's recovering from your workout, obviously, and there's recovery from life. So you have to kind of make sure that you're recovering from everything. The stress of the gym is just as negative as the stresses that you face at home, and just as negative as the stresses you face elsewhere. So you in order to get out of fitness and out of strength that you want, you have to be able to recover from it. One way to recover from it very easily is to eat well. Another way to recover from it is to make sure you're sleeping. So those are really, and also your hydration plays into it too. Those are really very easy things. It's kind of like low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, to make sure that you're just trying to do the best you can. And what's the best that you can do? It's just simply a little bit better than you were before. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, this guy's talking about a lot of different stuff, man, and I better get my shit together. Or you're thinking that you can't do it. If you currently sleep 6 hours, just work on sleeping 6.5. If you currently are not hitting the gym at all, work on going once a week. Just little stuff, those small steps. I always preach to people the philosophy of, 1 foot in front of the other. You mentioned that before we hopped on this podcast, that you share that same message. There's the saying, gratum ferociter, step by step, ferociously. It's 1 foot in front of the other every day. I know it's cliche, and I know you hear it all the time, but I'm telling you that if you concentrate on your feet, you concentrate on putting 1 foot in front of the other, just keep looking at your feet, 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 and keep going. When you put your head up, you will be surprised at how much distance you covered in a week, in a month, in a year. And also, people on the sidelines watching you walk, they're going to be applauding you because they're going to be like, dude, I can't believe the improvements you made. You're going to be like, huh? You're going to barely be aware of it. You're going to feel amazing. So those are all things that I really think people should just try. Just keep trying.
Yeah, for sure. And I love your motto. If you're not getting better, then you're getting worse.
Right.
A little improvement every day. So last thing real quick, and we don't have to get deep into this at all, but a lot of the guys in my community, getting up into their 40s, the body starts to change, testosterone starts to drop, they start moving less, agile. And so they still want to be stronger. They still want to lift heavy. So, what would you tell, a 42-year-old dad who's been sitting at a desk for 15 years, it has tight muscles everywhere. I'm sure they're, weak hamstrings and glutes and all those things. But really wants to get stronger and really wants to start lifting heavy, maybe like he did in college or, 20, 25 years past. How do you even get started on that path?
You have to start out by trying to hold on to one thing, So I mentioned walking just because I think that's just so easy. You can walk with your children, you can walk with your wife. Those are all great things, but you may need to, there's kind of the saying of like, if you want to do something fast, you go alone. If you want to do something long, then you do it together. So, it's nice to be inclusive because you can maybe do it for longer periods of time and you can, it could become part of your lifestyle. But you may have to just get out there on your own and just walk. Throw on some headphones, maybe invest in some nice headphones, and just start walking, just start moving. But it doesn't have to be walking. You could be riding your bike. You could start to have a better nutrition schedule, nutrition regimen. But whatever it is, try to hold on to that one piece and try to be as dedicated to that one thing as you can. I wrote a book called The War on Carbs. And the war on carbs, in my opinion, is like the ultimate fat guy dad diet type of thing because it's a low carb lifestyle, but it's got steak, it's got bacon, it's got omelets in there. It's a low carb, higher fat style diet. I don't really call it a keto diet because I'm not really worried about if you're making ketones. I'm not really worried about the nuances of what the hell's going on in your body. I just want you to feel better. I want you to look better. But being able to hold on to one thing is really, really crucial. And I've had hundreds, if not thousands of people tell me like, hey, I read the book or I tried some of your advice because I've given some of the advice away for free as well. The book's only like $20. But I've given some of the advice away for free and people are like, I tried doing, what you said. And it, for the first couple weeks, it was kind of hard, but I lost 40 pounds or I lost 30 pounds. Man, that is a tremendous amount of momentum. That's a tremendous amount of weight. What happens is you lose 5 pounds and then you lose 10 pounds. Somebody at work notices. Maybe your best friend notices. Maybe your wife notices, right? Or some relatives at the holidays. Those are certainly going to notice. Oh, man, you look a lot different than you did last year. What are you doing? What are you doing different? Man, that makes you so confident, that makes you feel so good that it gives you momentum. Well, now maybe you can pick up a second thing. Remember I said to hold on to one thing. So maybe you started out with walking or maybe you started out with a diet. Whatever the thing is that you choose, at some point you're probably going to stop improving a little bit and you may have to pick up something in addition to that. But no matter what happens, don't fold and don't falter. Hold on to that one thing. I've had a lot of people have a lot of success on the War on Carbs diet. one of the things that I think is hugely beneficial is that a lot of these guys that are sitting at their desk or have these types of jobs, they just get in the habit of just eating throughout the day, and they're not really mindful of what it is they're actually eating. We had Jay Cutler on my podcast about a few months back, and Jay Cutler is a 4-time Mr. Olympia. Mr. Olympia is the greatest award you can get in professional bodybuilding. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the one who kind of put that on the map. Jay Cutler said he'd eat 7 to 8 meals every single day. And I was like, wow, what an amazing amount of dedication. Then about 2 weeks later, this information comes across, and it says that the average American eats 11 to 12 times a day. And I was like, whoa. I was like, well, that beats the hell out of what Jay Cutler was doing. And that's just because it's mindless eating. You walk by somebody's desk and they got some M&Ms, and you're like, damn, M&Ms are good. And bam, you nail that. And you're just picking off food left and right. Every time you're in front of a screen, you're eating, and you're just not really paying attention. What a diet can really do for you is it can start to have you pay attention to what it is you're putting into your body. Try to treat yourself better. Try to, we treat ourselves so good in some ways. We treat our children so good in some ways, and then we're so bad in some other ways. Don't be abusive. Don't insult your body's metabolism. Be rewarding to your body's metabolism by feeding it the fuel that it needs. When you start to rid yourself of some of these carbohydrates, you're going to be shocked and surprised on what your mind can do and how you're going to really start to feel. It'll change your life. It has, for a lot of close family members of mine, I mean, they've lost 40, 50, 60 pounds, and they've kept it off. You always hear people saying they gain the weight back. Well, of course you gain the weight back, but you have to really be strong and focused in on sticking to that plan and or sticking to something else as you come out of that plan. So that's my advice for getting that momentum that you need. You got to stick to at least one thing and hold on to that dearly.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check out that book. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. And you made a good point, because we did a challenge in my group not too long ago with intermittent fasting, kind of a moderate schedule. And it wasn't the fasting itself, but it was the biggest benefit by far was the mindfulness, because like you said, we graze all day long. We have access to food 24/7, and we just graze, and it leads to overconsumption. And so by eating in a shortened window, right, where you say, okay, I'm not going to eat from this time to this time, that is gone. So you realize, hey, wait a minute, I'm not even hungry. I was just eating because I'm bored, tired, whatever emotion. So that's a great point.
Intermittent fasting is amazing. It's easy to do. Like, just don't eat, and it doesn't have to be for 24 hours. You can do, 10 hours, 12 hours. It can be kind of short, and I cover that in the book as well. It gives you some suggestions. I don't think it's necessary to fast every day for months on end, but utilizing it here and there. Why not utilize it going into the holidays? I mean, everyone's going to chub out coming up. Everyone's fatten up, so you might as well utilize some dieting strategy, some sort of fitness strategy.
Yeah, I mean, people will say, well, I'm going to a holiday party and there's all there is garbage. They'll say this is a perfect opportunity to fast. I mean, take 4 hours and fast. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to starve to death.
There's always some really excellent options too, and when you're on a low carb style diet, you can eat anywhere. There's not places that I haven't found where I could eat. There's always options. Even at an airport, you can always find pepperoni and cheese and different things like that. And these things taste delicious too. So you're looking forward to every meal. Yes, it's not a donut, and it's not pizza. And you can make room for those things, but it's got to be like every other week or so that you're able to. You got to try to string together as many days as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll link to your book. I'll link to the SlingShot, because I want people to find more about what you do. But where do you want people to find you online? Where's your main hub?
Yeah, if you're a social media person, you can find me at Mark Smelly Bell on Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel, which is Mark Bell SlingShot. Thousands of videos on there. Lifting. I always tell people, if I'm going to teach you how to lift, I got to teach you how to live. So you might have to live through me rambling about something. And And then you can also find any of my products, including the book, The War on Carbs, at markbellslingshot.com.
Awesome. Well, I've really appreciated your time here and really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so much. I'm sure this will be helpful for a lot of guys.
Yeah, just lastly, I just want to share with everybody, the most important thing that you have to do if you're a dad is be a dad, and if you're somebody that has felt like you've neglected that for multiple reasons, there's a lot of struggles involved with being a mom or a dad. With being a parent, there's a lot of struggles, there's a lot of adversity. If you're somebody that went through a divorce, there might be logistical reasons on why you can't parent as much as you want. But just stick with it and do the best job that you can, and understand that is the most important job that you'll ever do. Nothing is higher, nothing is greater, and don't let it overwhelm you either, because it can feel like an overwhelming thing. But if you weren't a good dad in the last couple years, the good news is that it's the good news and the bad news, right? It's a lifelong process being a parent, and so you're not out of it yet. You can still call your kid, you can still communicate with them, you can still reach out to them, you could still be involved in their life. And something my dad taught me that I always thought was very valuable is, and this is both my parents really taught this to me, is, the way that you spell love is Time. So try to figure out some ways of spending time or investing time into your kids.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Nothing better than being a dad.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark.
Take care. Have a great day.
Yep. You too.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, if you want more information, check out the Fit Dad Basecamp group on Facebook. And don't forget to stop by fitdadnation.com. Until next time, keep kicking ass and taking the next step. You can do this, Dad.